Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this Global Wealth Partners webinar. It's Kevin here, and Scott's with me. How are you doing this evening, Scott?
Yeah, no, interesting day here in Neisner. We've got fires on all sides. Yeah, I suppose spare a thought for people. A lot of people losing their houses tonight, and people are dying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's really not good to hear. I really hope that the rain that we're experiencing here in Cape Town reaches you guys quickly, so that can quench those out. So just welcome to everybody who's online. This evening we're going to have an interactive webinar. I just wanted to make sure everyone is 100% sure that they know how the GoToWebinar system works. So if you look at the GoToWebinar panel, you'll be able to see that you can type a question into the panel box. So if everybody is happy with how that works, if you can just give an indication there, say yes, we understand, ready to go, we can hear you loud and clear, so that we can see that people are here and ready to interact. So if you can go now to let us know you're all good. There we go. I see a whole bunch coming through now. People are here.
And maybe Kevin, tell us where you're from. Let's instantly see where we got people online from tonight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It will be very interesting to see where everybody is from. So while we're waiting for that, just so that everyone knows how tonight's gonna pan out, I'll be giving an intro, and that'll just be followed by Scott, who will give a better understanding of Wealth Migrate and what Wealth Migrate is to the core. And then I will follow up after that with the Wealth Partner Investment Opportunity and ensure that people understand what that's all about. And then we will stay online as long as we need to in order to answer questions. So if people have questions throughout the session, please do ask those. We will most likely answer some of those questions through the presentation, which I suspect will probably be about half an hour. And we probably will answer some of those questions, but if we don't get them, we'll definitely answer them at the end. So I see we've got a few people from Cape Town, Prince Albert, Heidelberg, some small towns there, Durban, Joburg. So yeah, Durban, as I said, so that's great to have people from all over. So our aim tonight is to give you an understanding of an investment in a technology company, how it works, what the Wealth Partner community actually is, how to become a part of it. At the core, Wealth Migrate have 3 values. Those are trust, transparency, alignment. I'm sure you've heard Scott say those many times. And we really want to make sure that people get the information they need to make the best decision that they can. As I said, it's going to be very interactive. Scott and I are going to be tag teaming in terms of the presentation. So in a good way. So please, please interact. So for those of you, I see there are some people who are fairly new. Just in terms of who I am, of course, I'm Kevin Allen. I'm calling myself a Wealth Migrate collaborator. I really believe in exponentials. I've had a couple of years where I've, I guess, augmented my formal studies with more exponential technology information, and I will be dealing with you as a wealth partner in the beginning stages before you become a wealth partner, and then you're part of the team, and the team will then handle it. So that is who I am. So if we,
and, Kevin, you also you've got a lot of humility, but you also are the head of the African Crowdfunding Association, and someone that really is recognized in the fintech sector around the world in terms of where this crowd technology is going, and exponentials, and marrying the two together.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Okay, so if we're gonna start sort of just quickly with the bigger picture. So for those of you who did attend the events of the last 2 weeks, you might have a bit of a better understanding of where the world is moving. We no longer live in a linear world. We are now living in a world that is not local, it's global, and it moves exponentially. And so, you know, what does that actually mean? So, sorry, I'm sure I mean, all of you will know all these companies that are on the screen right now. I've added a few extras to what Scott usually has on the similar screen. And all of those have a customer base in the hundreds of millions or billions. Facebook's actually just reached 2 billion users globally. And these companies have used exponential technologies in order to gain this global dominance. And you know, it's vital that a company in these days that is looking at a global business using tech uses these technologies in order to take advantage of that. Now, we often speak about these two particular companies, and it should be coming onto your screen now, which are Airbnb and Uber, and comparing those companies as exponential companies to sort of big giants that have been around in the same industries. So if we look at Uber versus Delta, which are both in the human transportation industry, or Airbnb versus Marriott, which are in the, you know, tourism accommodation space. If you look at Uber, started in 2009, they are in 82 countries and 157 cities, less than 7,000 employees, with a net worth of $68 billion. That compared to Delta, which started in 1924, biggest airline in the world, oldest operator, 34 cities, 64 countries, 80,000 employees, and their valuation is $37.9 billion, the majority of that valuation being actual assets, as in planes. If we look at Marriott versus Airbnb, Marriott's interesting because yes, they were, you know, from 1927 is when they were founded, but they were very much at the forefront of technology. The first hotel chain to allow people to book online in 1995. You know, so they really were at the forefront of technology, but you know, in a linear fashion, thinking of an evolutionary technology as a revolutionary one. And so, you know, they have 226,000 employees, 122 countries, 1.19 million rooms, and a valuation of 18 billion, compared to Airbnb, where, you know, they have 3 million listings. So 3 times the number of rooms. Their valuation's currently at 31 billion. But the interesting thing to look at is to actually look at their revenue, because you know, a lot of people, like these tech companies, don't really have, you know, aren't really turning a profit. And if you look at Airbnb, which, you know, started in 2008, so what is that now, 9 years? Their revenue for 2016 was $1.7 billion, with profits and EBITDA of 100 million. And if you compare that to Marriott's revenue of 14 billion, only an EBITDA of 800 million. Yes, that's still more than Airbnb, but Airbnb's 2017 EBITDA is projected at 450 million, and then $1 billion in 2018. So it's going to far outstrip Marriott hotels, which, you know, is you know, very, very interesting to see how new technology businesses actually compare to your more linear, run-of-the-mill businesses that have been around for a number of years. So the questions is, you know, where does you know, Wealth Migrate sort of fit into the grander scheme of things? So Wealth Migrate, of course, have developed a platform that allows people all over the world to simply invest in global real estate. Now, you know, that's removing the barriers of traditional that were traditionally in place, and Wealth Migrate is using these exponential technologies like Airbnb or Uber. And yes, it is different. Airbnb and Uber do have you know, the customer gets what they asked for immediately. With investing, it is a longer term play, but it is using those same exponential technologies. So I'm going to hand over to Scott, who's going to take over in terms of the presentation, looking at Wealth Migrate as the core. But before I do that, I wanted to just put this slide up, and you know, can we all agree, and you can make a comment if you want to, that real estate is a significant industry with a very large market. Now, Scott often talks about the $13 trillion industry, and of course these numbers are bigger than that. You know, this research done by Savills and the Bank of International Settlements, Dow Jones, and Oxford Economics shows that the real estate is valued at about $217 trillion worldwide. Of course, 13 trillion is what is changing hands each year, you know, being sold. So, but this is the complete value of all real estate. I find it very interesting that all gold ever mined there at the bottom at $6 trillion. So it really is a big industry that, you know, that Wealth Migrate are playing in. And Scott, I think we can hand over to you now to give you know, the core of what Wealth Migrate is.
Kevin, thanks very much. Appreciate it, and thanks for taking us through that. I also want to just share, if anyone missed it, there are people here that weren't there last week, so let me just change my presenter. Boom. I must admit, this graph you've got up is absolutely fascinating to me. I thought the market actually was 13 trillion, and I didn't realize it was literally, that's just what's changing hands every year. It's incredible. So I just want to start and just show people how value is created in the space, and you speak about those exponentials. But when you look at the companies, when you look at the technology companies, can you see my screen at the moment where it says, it's from the Wall Street Journal, and it's the $1 Billion Startup Club, and it's literally the technology companies back to 2014. Are you seeing that, Kevin?
Yes, I am. You're stealing my content for later.
Okay, well, then I'll leave it. Let's leave that for Kevin's content later. So I would hate to jump the gun here. So really, from our perspective, I'm going to keep this short. I'm going to keep this sweet. We've actually got a recording of this in a longer detail, and for those of you who want the full detail, you should all have the links from the entire pitch deck that we put together last week. But really, I think from my perspective, I want to just give you a quick overrun. So really, for me, it started at a young age. Actually, you know, on the 1st of August 2005, I got a call from my mother. It was about 11 p.m. at night. I was actually in London, and unfortunately, she phoned me to tell me that my father had passed away. I flew home, and when I actually got home, I found a bank slip which was sitting next to his bed, where he had tried to draw 50 Rand the day before and been declined by Standard Bank. Now, that is not really how the story should go for someone that worked hard at school, went to university, became a chartered accountant, ultimately went on to be the financial director of Rainbow Chickens. He trusted the financial industry with his money, and ultimately he passed away broke. And for me, when I look back, it really drives me from a passion perspective. You know, I've only really wanted to do two things in life, and that's I've had a passion for technology. I did my first programming course when I was 6, and a passion for property. And this was actually me and my dad at the age of 13, effectively building an ensuite double-bedroom bathroom so that I didn't have to share with my brother. And my passion all my life has been trying to figure out how that we can marry the two together. And in simple terms, this was a game that I loved at a young age. And, you know, we've really been trying to turn this game into a reality. Equally, growing up in Africa, you know, we see the wealth gap. We see it every single day. We see that the difference between the haves and the have-nots. And I believe that when you come from Africa, there's a deep passion inside you to solve some of the great challenges which are out there on the planet. When you look at the results, you know, literally 49% of the world's wealth is held in property, and yet only 12.9% of the world's population actually has access to property. And I find it absolutely amazing that of that 12.9%, less than 1% of people at the age of 65 in the Western world, so not South Africa, in Australia, in England, in America, less than 1% of people will retire wealthy. The other 99% at the age of 65 will join my father and either be broke, be unfortunately passed away, and or be reliant on the government, or as they say, financially independent, which is 25% poorer than the last day of your last paycheck. So we really set out on a mission to enable technology to let the top, allow the 99% to be able to invest exactly like the top 1%. Our vision was to make it simple, really to make real estate, global real estate, as simple as being able to invest, literally with a swipe of a finger, and also from as little as $1. And when I'm in America, I get asked this all the time. Why $1? $1 is not going to make an impact, and I say it won't. It won't necessarily change someone's life, but I'll tell you what, it'll change their habits. And if we change their habits, we're going to change their destiny. So for me, we come from a country where Nelson Mandela, and I actually, had him as the very first page in my book, Property Going Global. And this quote is something that I believe very strongly in, which is money won't create success, the freedom to make it will. And so when we look back on the evolution of Wealth Migrate, the top 1% invest in good quality commercial assets globally. But traditionally to do that cost, quite frankly, millions of dollars. And when we started the platform in 2013, we started at $100,000. Then we got it down to $10,000. Then we got it down to $1,000. And right now we've managed to get it down to $100 or 1,000 Rand if people are looking to invest locally in South Africa, and if they're investing overseas, $1,000. We are not there yet in terms of the $1. In fact, we're still a way off, both in a technology perspective and in a regulatory environment. But it's our dream, it's our vision, and we will get there. We are really excited that from a user adoption, we're clearly doing something right. We've now got users from 90 different countries and investors from 22 different countries. And what's fascinating to me is that we've only really made a large marketing effort in South Africa and in China, and yet look where everyone is coming from all over the world. Clearly, we are fulfilling a solution to a burning desire, a burning need that other people have. In terms of the markets we focus on, there tend to be three major macro fundamentals. The one is that there needs to be a large population. The second is that there needs to be urbanization. And the third is that there needs to be internet adoption. Those three things signal effectively a rise of the middle class. And when you consider in China, and you get different reports that the Chinese middle class is on average between 300 to 400 million people, when you consider the impact that they've had in the last 20 to 30 years globally on the global economy, and then you take into account that just these regions are looking to increase from 1.5 billion to roughly 2.7 billion, or roughly 1.2 billion people over the next 10 years, you can agree that it's going to be a 4, 5, possibly even a 6-fold impact on the rise of the Chinese middle class globally. And it's why we are so passionate about focusing on the emerging world and where the middle class is thriving. When you look at the global capital flows, you can see as an example here, out of China into Europe, just in real estate last year, $14.5 billion, and into America, just in real estate, $20 billion. We're not interested in the top 1%. We're not interested in literally those people that already have the ability to move it. We're interested in the 300 to 400 million middle-class people in China that have the exact same need, the exact same necessity, can legally move $50,000 a year and want to be able to participate and equally love real estate. And that's just an example of how we like to focus on the middle class in terms of this rising middle class and the opportunity. You can imagine the capital flows once they have a solution to a real need which they're driving. I love this picture. It truly, for me, sums up where the future is going. These children in Africa are learning, and I wear an armband here, which is the Education X Prize, which is to help a child go from illiteracy to literacy in less than 18 months without a teacher learning on a tablet. And these children will grow up, they will start to get education through tablets, then they'll get access to health, and finally they'll want access to wealth. And we believe that the real opportunity in the world, the real disruptors, are going to come out of the emerging world, where people understand the emerging world. It's not a nice to have, it's a necessity. And that's really where the opportunity is really exponentially growing. At the moment, you've got the middle class that has a real need to get assets and their wealth into the first world. But with time, these massive populations and rising, populations that are joining the middle class are going to equally have that need. I spoke a little bit about Kevin earlier on. Kevin actually formed the African Crowdfunding Association. Wealth Migrate was one of the founding partners, because we fundamentally believe that technology is coming to this continent, and we want to do it in a safe and compliant way. We want to work with the regulators to bring in the new age of technology and the new way of doing things, and ultimately help people to get access to the best opportunities using technology. Our business model is really simple. On the demand side, you've effectively got investors that want access to the best quality opportunities around the world. On the supply side, you've got the best property suppliers that want access to global investors. And really what Wealth Migrate does is it helps them list their properties on the platform, and then helps the clients actually invest on the platform and continue the loop. There's really only 4 steps to it. We help people sign up, they go online and select their investment, they can transact online, and ultimately they can manage their entire portfolio online, which, for me, quite frankly, is the thing that really excites me, because owning properties on 4 continents was a real nightmare trying to manage it with all the different hassles, emails, and everything else. And so we asked ourselves a question: how could we make global real estate investing easy? And what we're really proud of now is that with our platform, you can literally invest in South Africa, Australia, England, America in a couple of minutes, literally in less than 10 minutes. You can create true global wealth. You can get access to quality partners and the best opportunities. And you're investing overseas, it's as little as $1,000. If you're investing locally, it's as little as 1,000 Rand. In the past, it was all about hassles, and management issues and complex global tax structures. You don't need any of that now. You can literally focus on the best returns around the world globally. And when I show you, when I log in here, I just want to show you live. So anyone can show you a nice pretty picture or a nice PowerPoint, but I want to log in here, and you're seeing me doing it live, into my own personal portfolio. And really, for me, this will just give you a little bit of an indication of a view into your future, and a view into, you here wanting to understand the wealth partners, a view into the future of where technology, real estate, and wealth are going. So this is me on my portfolio. You can see I'm invested on 4 continents. If I go into my funded investments, you can see my different investments. If I click on any of these different opportunities, I can go into all the different updates. I can find out about the projects. I can literally see what's going on and where we're at. If I go back to my portfolio, the thing that I like as well is, so if you go through these are just my funded investments, you can see all the different returns and where you're at. The part as well, I've got bank accounts in Australia, America, England, and South Africa. Managing them is a flipping nightmare. Now I don't have to worry about that. I can literally have all my bank accounts here. They're actually Barclays bank accounts. They are audited by PKF. We never touch people's money. But the beauty is that people can go online, they can fund their wallets, they can literally put the money through using their credit card, they can use BitPay, and obviously EFT, etc. And then when I get my returns from my projects, they come into my wallet. The reason my wallet's got so little money in it is because it doesn't earn a lot of interest. It's a Barclays Bank current account. So when it arrives, I like to put it into properties. I can then go into any of my investments, and you can actually see here, this was a new development I invested in Australia. I invested $10,000. I also did $100, by the way. We beta testing $100. And you can see here exactly what is invested. You can see the fees. If you go in here and look at the tracking number, you can go on Bloomberg as an example. It's a listed security on one of the top 15 exchanges in the world. And if you've never seen blockchain before, this is live blockchain, which ultimately we believe is going to completely disrupt the real estate world. In most countries, it takes 3 months to transfer a property. This effectively is like your digital deed of sale, and you no longer have a deeds office. So effectively, this is your deed of sale. You can see it's been confirmed 22,000 times. It only has to be confirmed 6 times to be valid. And if you want to go into the deeds office, so in the old days, you would have walked into the deeds office and actually checked whether or not I actually own the deed. I'm now going on Block Cipher, the underpin of Bitcoin, and you can actually see here that I own this. It was received 4 months ago. It's confirmation. That's basically techie way of showing you that you've got you own this security. Your money's been invested. So for me, I could go into a lot more detail, but I'm conscious of time. And what I'm truly passionate about is that I no longer have to deal with management agents and all the hassles and emails and broken toilets and all that. I can literally do everything online in one place, yet across 4 different continents. We use a system which we call our GID system, which stands for Global Investment Due Diligence System. It really is a big data and algorithmic system. It's been built up over many years of many of our different systems. You know, I wrote a book, like I spoke about earlier, with Properly Going Global. It was actually endorsed by Clem Sunter with my 4-dimensional modeling, taking his scenario planning and how to invest in the world, where to invest. It took Henny, Besaidnout, and Alan Kynock and some very, very wealthy investors and everything they do on the due diligence side. It took Dr. Dolph de Roos and his REAP systems and REM systems, and it brought it all together to ultimately help people know where to invest, you know, when to invest, what to invest in, how to invest. And this is a system that ultimately was manual, that over time is more and more being built into the back-end fundamentals. This is our secret sauce, and with time we'll be adding, you know, robo-advising, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to this as well. What really excites me is that it's fairly obvious that technology is going to change real estate. It's one of the most old and archaic industries around the world, and yet every single other platform, we're aware of over 250 different platforms, but every single other one is located in one country, servicing one population and one need. And yet I believe that the world is completely changing. I believe that the world is global and that people want diversity across asset classes, across currencies. And so we set out right from the beginning to answer that question. How do we make global real estate investing easy? And that's where we're now based. So people, you know, if you wanted to invest in America with any of these other ones, then you'd have to be on one platform. If you want to be in England, you'd have to be on that one. If you want to be in Dubai there, China there, you know, Australia there. Whereas if you're on Wealth Migrate, you could do it all in one place. And really, from our perspective, in terms of our milestones, we really have brought out 4 major versions of our technology platform. You can see it here in gray. Why this graph's important is that every time we brought out a new version of the technology platform, it allowed us to dramatically increase our deal volume and also be able to roll out our marketplace, obviously with us launching China last year. And this is just growing faster and faster. You know, we're looking to deploy multiple markets in 2017 with an eye on China as well. And most people don't know, sorry, I said China, with an eye on India. Most people don't know that the second biggest country that's moving money overseas into real estate is India after China. Just in terms of some of the numbers, you know, I've said already, we've got users from 90 countries, we've got investors from 22. We've had $56 million invested through the platform. We've done over 910 transactions, an average of about 63,000 per transaction. We generally earn about 3% per project. We've got a team of about 50 people across the globe. Something I'm really proud of, we've got a more than 70% reinvestment rate. That's really important. So if someone invests, more than 70% of people are reinvesting. So that's that whole customer lifetime value, you know, really about adding value. It's one of the reasons why we're dropping the barriers to entry as much as possible so that we can keep continuing to add value to them. And we paid out $2.9 million in dividends already. Last year in November, we were awarded in the KPMG Global FinTech Top 50. We were the only company in the whole of Africa to be in that top 50. It really is an incredible accolade, and quite frankly, I'm quite humble. And when one considers that there's 4 listed companies, 20 unicorns already in that top 50, it's phenomenal that Wealth Migrate was elected in that. And last year we also came in the top 50.
Quickly, yes. Sorry, I just thought I'd let you know. I mean, I was talking to Joyce Koffler today, as from an African crowdfunding point of view. I was interviewing her for our YouTube channel, and you know, she actually mentioned Wealth Migrate, and you know, the fact that it's amazing that, you know, the giants that Wealth Migrate was amongst. You know, most of those companies in the top 50 are, as you say, I mean, half of them are actually billion-dollar valued companies, and it really is, it's amazing what, you know, what Wealth Migrate's been able to do in terms of the fact that we were the only African company there. So I mean, really, it is a major thing, and it's, you know, recognized by people all over the world.
No, thank you, Kevin. It gives me goosebumps actually while you say that. I think really it's testament to an incredible team. We've got a small team, but a very tenacious team, and I think you know, primarily the teams coming out of, you know, South Africa and China are very resourceful. They figure out how to achieve a lot with a little, and I think it really bodes well for the future. A lot of people underestimate people coming from South Africa. I watched a great movie last night on Elon Musk, and yeah, I don't think that people from the emerging world should be underestimated. In terms of traction, this is probably something that I get really excited about more than most. Our user growth is literally, I mean, we've more than doubled our user growth on last year. We're not even halfway through the year. We're currently growing at between 0.5% and 1% a day. If you heard me talk last week, particularly if you're at the World Partner Dinners, I said we were averaging 40 a day. What's quite interesting to me is we're well above 40 already. Yesterday was 122. This morning, or sorry, when I just checked about an hour ago, we were at 102 just for today. So it's interesting because now it looks like we're getting closer to 100 per day. We smashed through 4,000 and yesterday, and we're already at 4,000, over 4,200. So we're well on our way to 5,000 as well. What's also important is looking at transactions. It's, you know, some could argue, well, it's easy to get users on a platform. What's important is the engagement as well. These are the transactions, so this is when people are actually investing money, and I think it's a really nice curve in terms of what's happening this year. And even on this quarter, we've already, you know, it's only the beginning of June, and we're already well above where we were in the Q1 of this year. So, you know, for me, the numbers, when you look at the total number of investors, you can just see it growing nicely, which I really like. Again, clearly we are fulfilling a need. And then from a revenue perspective, something that's quite important is that they talk about the mythical $1 million. It's very difficult for technology companies to make their first million. We broke through that last year. At the end of last year, we were at $1.1 million. We really are now, you know, they talk a lot about in a business, you need to go through the nail it stage and then go into the scale it stage. We're at the fence point. We're not quite there yet, but we're very nearly there now to go from the nail it to scale it. And I can talk a lot more about that if people want some more information. This is a graph that Michiel did, which I really enjoy, which is a lot of technology companies will tell you that they're doing lots more transactions, but they're not actually making any money. And this was just showing the correlation of how our transactions and our revenue, with our transactions increasing, our revenue is increasing as well. They run in correlation. And so really in conclusion from my side, Kevin, you know, something I'm deeply passionate about, I started with that story of my father. You know, I'm deeply passionate about empowering people and giving them access to wealth. You know, one of the greatest challenges on this planet is the wealth gap. And I fundamentally believe it can be solved by providing people with access to technology and ultimately helping them, you know, to invest smartly. And when people say to me, what does smart investing mean? Well, this is my son. He's 5 years old, my wife, Kelly. And you can see here at a very young age, he's learning that to own green houses and, green hotels and red houses and earn a passive income, you know, is what they call smart investing. This is his father's portfolio, and with an incredible team, it's really turned a boyhood fantasy of turning Monopoly into real life, and it really is now. I mean, this is diversified, a portfolio diversified across residential and commercial, across 4 different continents, and in some cases with as little as $100 invested. And we really believe that that is what we call smart investing. The top wealthiest 1%, they tend to work with things called a family office. Those family offices look at the family, they make it very bespoke for that family, they look around the world for the best opportunities, they marry the two together, and most importantly, they create generational wealth for those families. And we call that smart investing. And really for us, what puts us on this planet, what keeps us awake at night, what we're deeply passionate and purposeful about, is to put smart investing in every single person's pocket. And we believe when we do that, we will be able to solve, or certainly go a very long way to solving the wealth gap. And our purpose is to empower 1 billion people. And a lot of people look at me like I'm stark staring mad. But you know, Kevin just mentioned that Facebook is over 2 billion users now. It's only really been going since 2004, so it's not even 15 years old. And there's absolutely no ways or no reason that we will not be able to use technology to solve the greatest challenge on the planet. And so I'm sorry if I talk too much. I'm sorry if I get passionate, but I've pretty much spent my entire life trying to figure out how to marry together property and technology and solve the greatest challenge on the planet. That's all from me, Kevin.
Great. Thank you so much, Scott. So thanks for taking us through that. I'm going to quickly switch to my screen.
Just think one thing while you're switching, everyone should be able to see my webcam here. Something that's truly exciting to me is that all of us like to be able to, it's one thing to do it off a laptop. Can you see my webcam? I presume you can.
Yes.
Just while you're switching screens. You can switch screens because it's off my webcam. And, here I'm on my mobile and I can literally go in, I can manage my entire portfolio off my cell phone. I can go and look at any one of my funded investments. Everything I just showed you on the laptop actually works off your mobile phone. You can literally go in, you can check your bank accounts, you can check your securities, all on your mobile phone. So, you've got your bank accounts there. You can go into your securities. And for me, this is where it gets super exciting. I mean, this is the sort of stuff that's going to change the world, when people can manage their global portfolio from their cell phone. So I'm sorry, Kevin, if I talk too much about this stuff. Really,
no, absolutely not. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I guess, given the fact that we have people on the webinar tonight looking, interested in being wealth partners, I would believe are just as passionate as you about what Wealth Migrate is building, because that's why they're here. The technology that underpins what Wealth Migrate has done is truly a world first in terms of securitizing assets and giving people all over the world that opportunity, as opposed to you have to be an American with a social security number to invest in American property. So if we just continue now, of course, as I said, I mean, the aim of tonight's webinar was to speak about the wealth partners, the wealth partner investment. So I've just put up this slide. It's got a couple of pictures on it. Just some of the history in terms of Wealth Migrate. Wealth Migrate comes out of a history of IPS, of a company that has been built around community. Community has really been a big part of the company and resonates with the company's core, and that being.
Kevin, I would like to just point out. So I would like to just point out that you can see the black tie dinner on the top left with me wearing a Zulu hat. Anyway, I like to have fun as well.
No, absolutely. But essentially, I mean, if you look at some of these pictures, I think that's a 2014 billionaire ball and a buyer's trip there. The wealth movement event we had. The bottom right-hand picture is pretty much where wealth partners got called wealth partners. It had been around under different names, design partners, shareholders. It got its name at that event. I also just put up the picture of the Kids and Lemonade Day, just as a reminder of the fact that this is not only about being able to become wealthy, but it's about being able to actually impact lives and become wealthy at the same time, because we really do believe in that. We really do believe in an abundant world. And so the Wealth Partners is really all about being able to build a company that is for the crowd, that is by the crowd, with shareholders that actually are clients as well. So the Wealth Partners came about, as I said, about 2014, when clients who had purchased real estate said, "Jeepers, this platform is great. How do we become involved?" And Scott sort of initially was like, "Well, it's not a possibility." And then through listening to people as well as looking at other technology companies, Salesforce, and the way they actually built up their company, thought, "Jeepers, we can actually use the power of the community and the crowd to actually be a part not only of the great real estate, but actually a part of the company, and win with the company as well, and be a part of that." And so while while the Wealth Partners is a financial investment in terms of your, of your investment, it's also an investment in a community. And I've put up the honeycomb that we created in 2015, and this honeycomb essentially, Scott really likes the use of nature's laws. And again, if you've been to events of ours before, you would have heard Scott speak about that. And I mean, and they resonate with me as well. There's rules in the world that, could be true or not, but there's nature's principles that definitely are true. And so this honeycomb is sort of built on those nature's laws. And this outlines all the different areas that, Wealth Migrate have in terms of a business and where people can have input. Now, the Wealth Partner community, as I said, yes, you're investing in a company, but you're also investing in a community and becoming a part of a community that, that you wouldn't necessarily have the chance of being a part of. How many people, were one of those initial investors in Uber or in Airbnb? Those were possibly their family and friends, and this is the opportunity we have now. Scott, you look like you want to say something.
Well, well, someone actually just asked a question, and just to mention, you and I might not be very famous, but we've got some incredible people. I mean, a lot of people might or might not have read this book, Real Estate Riches, by Dr. Dolph DeRoos. It was part of the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. He was a business partner with Robert Kiyosaki, Tony Robbins, Donald Trump, by the way, and we got him on board in 2014. He's the president of the organization, and he's just one of a few, that are really incredible, globally recognized players that are part of it. And that's probably one of the things I like most, is it's not just a South African community, it's a global community with some of the best minds around the world coming together. And that's why this honeycomb is important, because there's 6 major areas and people like to get involved and assist and help. And I always joke, but we did this in October 2015, and you'll see up in the top corner here, we had digital currency. I mean, it was just a dream. We were like, hey, how are we going to do digital currency? And a year later, we launched our entire platform built on blockchain. So sorry to butt in, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And Scott, I mean, I know that you sent it out. Some people might have heard, sent it out in terms of the SMS with regards to, people who invested in early days in Airbnb or in Uber. What was the outcome, there for those people today?
If you invested early $20,000 in Uber, today it'd be worth $340 million. If you invested $20,000 in Airbnb, today it'd be $413 million. Yeah, quite significant. And if you invested $200,000, well, you can just do the maths.
Yeah,
it's in the
absolutely. Absolutely. So,
just by the way, Kevin, I've heard lots of stories as well of people that have partaken in these type of things and really kind of benefited. There's actually a South African that bought 7% of Uber. He's the guy that was behind Data, and obviously has made a phenomenal return. I've equally heard a lot of stories of people that were offered the opportunity and sit back and kick themselves. One guy I met in Dubai. He was in a dorm room with one of the founders or someone close to Airbnb, and he was offered to put in 20,000. That's actually why I know the number 20,000, and he turned it down. It would only be worth $400 million today.
So the question that people may be asking in terms of the Wealth Partner investment, and again, just to reiterate, of course, this is an investment within the platform as opposed to an investment within real estate on the platform that you can simply do by yourself. You don't really need to join a webinar The process is really that simple. Once you KYC, it's a 4-step process. You can just do it on your phone. But in terms of this investment, it is an investment in a technology company. So if you look at the graph on the left-hand side, that shows a typical J curve. If you're not from the tech space or the exponential space or the venture capital space, you might not have seen this curve. But essentially, in terms of a company that's building out a marketplace online, your development costs, your marketing costs to gain users, those outstrip your revenue cost initially, and then over time, as your user base increases, your revenue pushes through and you enter into the blue sky. So that's what that graph is talking about. So if there's any questions that you have around that, yes, Scott.
I think it's quite important just to say that, and that's why we say that the wealth partner community is something that's very unique, and yes, you get to share in being a shareholder, and the upside, there's the community, there's being able to go away on weekends together and do the dinners like we've done, and different WhatsApp groups with the latest information, and all those benefits. But people also need to realize it also comes at a risk. It's effectively it is a technology platform. One is investing in where you talk about that J curve, and there's not 100% guaranteed success. One thing that a lot of people do ask me, which is important, is that if Uber went completely bankrupt, it would literally have a nice app and that would be it. Whereas in our case, we are building balance sheets, real estate balance sheet wealth. And currently, if it all went pear-shaped, we would still be getting 50 cents on the dollar in terms of the actual real estate value that's on the balance sheet. So sorry for butting in, but it's just important.
No, sure. That's good to actually say. You've actually answered one of the questions that people had in terms of what is the risk? Is there any risk mitigation that is in place? Should the worst happen? And you've just answered that question. Yes, there is, as opposed to other tech companies where, for example, Snapchat, which is being beaten up by Instagram at the moment. Yes, they IPO'd, but if Facebook keep putting money into Instagram, Snapchat may have to completely pivot their business model, do something, and all they really have is their IP, their tech. So that's that question answered. If we look at, a lot of people have asked the question, what am I actually investing in? So on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see the structure in terms of the company. So the wealth partners invest at the top level, which is actually Global Wealth Group, which owns outright, Wealth Migrate Holdings, which is based in Hong Kong. So that is where the wealth partner shareholding is held. So it is an international, dollar-based investment.
And I think, Kevin, what's really important there, and sorry, I get asked this all the time, so I'm answering questions people normally ask me, is that the reason we did it is that the holding company owns everything. It owns all the platforms, all the IP, all the technology. It owns all the different countries and the rollouts in all the different countries. There's no separate company that exists. Like, that's exactly where Henny and I, as the founders, are sitting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So if there are any questions with regards to that, please do put them in the question box. And as I say, we will be answering those questions as we go. The next thing that people want to know, of course, is how is the share price calculated? What is the investment? What are the levels of investment? How do I invest? What does that entail? So without going into too much detail in terms of the sort of mathematics behind things, essentially a technology company is valued using what's called discounted cash flow model, so DCF model. And what I will do is in the chat box, I can put two articles, links to articles in the chat box, which we can do during the question time, which if you are interested in deeply seeing how it's calculated, then by all means you can go and look at that. Again, Scott often talks about there's two types of people in the world: those that really love the the nitty-gritty detail, and those that that don't necessarily. But we can share that with you. So essentially, that model uses future cash flows and your current revenue to work out a valuation in comparison, and then we've compared that to other companies. We haven't put up to, we're not going to show tonight the competitors that we have shown in the past, that, for example, at the events you would have seen, looking at comparables to, for example, American platform like Fundrise, or Property Partner in the UK, or Co-Assets out of Asia Pacific. But in terms of where we are and where we're valuing the company, which is a valuation at 37.5 million, is pretty much, it's quite a bit lower than the competitors, and with the aim of,
it's less than 50% of where our competitors were, with lower metrics than us. But again, it comes back to that philosophy. Our wealth partners are core to our success together, and if we want to win together, we grow the company slowly. We could justify a far higher valuation, but then we don't all win together. We want to ensure everyone wins together.
Absolutely, and then that's exactly what I was going to say, Scott. So thanks. I mean, it's about continuing to win together and being open about that. So if you look at the summarized wealth partner options that I've put on the screen, just showing the sort of nitty-gritty detail here, taken out some of the lines. But of course, I know a number of people online tonight I've already shared this with. If you are new and I haven't been in contact with you, please, Scott, maybe you can actually just put up that poll, asking people in terms of what they're looking for, and if you are looking to become a wealth partner and I haven't been in contact with you yet, please do choose that option with regards to becoming a wealth partner, so that I can send through that information to you.
Just quickly, Kevin, there's a great question here, which I presume ties back to your organogram earlier. A lot of people, know IPS and just asking, is IPS part of it? Yes, IPS was absorbed and, well, effectively sold, absorbed, whichever way you want to look at it, into the group at the end of 2015. So from January 2016, it's now part of the Global Wealth Group. And that's why the holding company that we all own shares in, that owns everything, is actually called the Global Wealth Group, because it actually has got IPS, Wealth Migrate. With time, it's going to have Wealth Create and many other platforms, all within one space. So, yeah,
absolutely. So for those people who...
I'll put that poll up that you asked for.
Yes, thanks, Scott. So I was going to say, for those people who are listening only and not looking at their screens, please do look at your screen now and answer the poll. The numbers are moving up now in terms of people answering, but there's still quite a few people who have not answered that poll. So please do do that. There we go. The numbers jumping. People are finding their mouse and being able to click. Great. That's looking good. Okay, so it's great to see that there are a number of people who are looking to join the community, and that's really great. Thanks, Scott. I think maybe we can close out the poll so that I can so the screen can come back up. So if we look at the matrix on the screen, there are two levels of investment that you can make that will allow you as an investor to become part of the community and have everything in terms of becoming a wealth partner and being part of the community, and in terms of share value. It's and all the wealth partners are treated equally in terms of long-term value. From the strategic partner level, which is at $200,000, the investment becomes an investment as type A shares, which are the same shares as the founders. Those are then voting shares with voting rights. So that is a distinction that we have. And what is quite important to understand from this matrix is that we're offering a further 15% discount on the share price if the investment is made before the end of the month. So, for example, if at the $200,000 level the share price is currently $3, it would be $2.55, and so therefore the number of shares purchased would be 78,431 as opposed to 666,667. Almost did a zoomer there in terms of counting. So that discount is in place for investors before the end of the month. So while this is up, if there are questions, again, please do put those questions into the question box, and we will be answering those very shortly. This in fact is the last slide that I had, which is in terms of the $1 Billion Club. And the question is, can Wealth Migrate join the $1 Billion Club? And Wealth Migrate has 3 variables: transactions, a fee per transaction, and an average transaction size. And so the 5-year goal is 1 million transactions per year, 5% fee, an average of $2,000 per transaction will allow Wealth Migrate to have $100 million in revenue, which would be a valuation of $1 billion. So is it possible? It is most definitely possible. Scott, I don't know if you want to take control of the screen to actually show the $1 Billion Club live, in terms of how it works. But that essentially is the 5-year goal.
Sorry, I'm just trying to put my screen on. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, I am seeing your screen.
Where's that screen going? So that was the one. That's the one you're talking about here. So effectively, just playing it here, which is what happens since 2014.
Scott, sorry, we're seeing your PowerPoint screen, not your main computer screen. Sorry.
Okay. Stop showing screen. Show screen now. Kevin, you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
For some reason, my machine's playing up. Let's we can go to some questions in the meantime. I don't know what.
Let me just say, in terms of next steps, a lot of people might say, well, what are the next steps? So the next steps are, if you are interested and we haven't been in contact, me and you yet, then please type in the box Wealth Partner WP. Make it known that you're interested. I will be getting hold of everybody who was on this webinar. So you can also send me an email, kevin@wealthmigrate.com. You can call me if you want. I can number 082-974-1847. If you want to call me, that's also fine. Once you've decided on the investment amount that you're looking at, then the following steps would take place. We will send through a subscription agreement. That subscription agreement would be signed by you. We would then countersign it. Would then, you would transfer money. Then the team will be in contact with you in terms of confirming your shareholder details, how you want to hold the shares, whether it's in your personal capacity or in any structure that you have in place. You'll then be welcome to the Wealth Partner Group, and then a share certificate will be sent through to you, and you have the opportunity to be part of what Wealth Migrate is building. So those are the steps that would be to follow. So I think, as you've said, Scott, let's go into some of the questions that have been asked here. So Scott, I don't know how you want to go about this. Maybe I could read the question, and then we can look at answering it together.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind, Kevin. For some reason, my GoToMeeting is playing up. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to, you're an organizer as well. If I switch mine off and log back in, it won't switch it off, huh?
Yeah, that's correct. Scott, it's so strange. I've got color wheel on my computer as well with GoToMeeting. So I don't know if there's something with... Maybe we shouldn't play games then. As in, you can't read the questions either. So, I do have a few questions here. So, yes.
You stay online. You stay online. I'm going to force quit, and then I'm going to log back in. Okay.
Okay, sure.
If everyone gets kicked out by mistake, just log back in. Clearly, the fires. I just found out that Johnny's school's burned to the ground, and 5 families are on their way to our house right now.
Oh my word. Okay, while we are waiting for Scott to come back, there are some questions that I can look at answering if my computer would like to play ball. So there's a question here just in terms of why is the company based in Curacao and Hong Kong. So just in terms of that question, again, Wealth Migrate's aim is to be a dollar-based international global company, and in terms of structuring, this structure made the most sense. What I just want to explain to people, of course, is that the investment structure in terms of real estate is completely separate to the company structure in terms of the company. So it's important for people to understand that the investment structure in terms of real estate is handled completely separately, audited by PKF, and it's completely ring-fenced to the company structure, which has been built that way in order to ensure tax efficiencies for the company.
I'm back. Did you lose? Did it go down, or is it just me that disappeared?
No, Scott, everyone is still here. So I see you're not sharing your screen.
So I can share now. I've got my computer back, basically. So
okay,
sorry, do you want me to read the questions, because I've got the questions back up? I don't know what happened.
Unfortunately, Scott, my GoToMeeting is not allowing me to open up or scroll through the questions at the moment.
Yeah, that was what was okay. So let me run through the questions here. Boom, 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 boom. Wow, it's really weird. This GoToMeeting's having an awesome day. Now it's got them all messed up in order. It never does this. Right. Okay. So I assume this investment would form part of your annual allowance with SARS in taking funds out of the country, and we would require approvals from SARS. Yes, Kate. That is correct. And from our perspective, we can assist people with that. Our auditors, PKF, have assisted people in terms of doing that process. We've also been able to help people move money legally in terms of the process. So if people, with regards to the overseas allowance, yes, that is the process. Dimitri said, can I invest less than 10,000? Dimitri, not at the moment. The idea is we're going to do, and no, I don't know if someone's going to ask it, so I'm just going to answer it anyway. Why are we doing the 15% discount? The board has already approved the share prices, which are going to be the ones for the global launch that is taking place starting in effectively July, and August will be the soft launch with the main launch in October this year. And we just believe that from the Wild Partner community, allowing people to get in at a discount prior to that. And Dimitri, that's the point when people will be able to invest. I don't know what the minimum will be, but we'll certainly try and get it as low as possible, hopefully even $100 if we can. Is the share price per transaction? If an investor invests 200 today and 300 in 3 months, how does the pricing work? Lee, great question. I think the most important thing is that the discount has been approved till the end of June. We obviously, from a share pricing perspective, we do try and manage it in terms of the growth. We can't make promises. If a large institutional partner came on board, then we can't guarantee where we would be. We have in the past had a number of clients. I don't know, Kevin, if you can give me the exact number, but it's certainly probably closer to 10 clients that have invested 2 or 3 times. They got a bit more comfortable, they invested a bit more, they got a bit more comfortable, invested a bit more. And particularly if someone makes a commitment, like Lee, like you're asking there, our whole thing is about getting the right person and the right partners on board. Kevin, just quickly, I do apologize for the dog barking. I'm sorry, there's 5 families arriving at our house coming to stay here tonight. I would normally go out and shout and ask them to close the door, but right now everyone's a little bit sensitive. The one thing I think is really important here is that equally, this is not for everybody. And we're very, very strict on who joins the community. I got taught by Ian Scott, who's the senior founding partner of Grant Thornton, when we started this over 3 years ago. He said, Scott, it's like a golf club. One bad golf club member can ruin the whole thing. And so I, personally, I've spoken to every single person, myself or Kevin. We've met with every single person because we really do feel that it's important that people have the right mindset and that they really want to be able to participate. Are you there, Kevin? I'm not just talking to myself, am I? It's like very quiet. I'm like suddenly wondering if I'm just rambling to myself. But yeah. So and it's really important for people to understand that. And for some people, it's an incredible experience. It's one of the things I'm most grateful for in my life, and I'm sure most of the wealth partners. And by the way, someone else asked, can I meet other wealth partners? Happy to share and put you in contact, and you can speak to them and get their experience. But I think what's really important here is that for some people it's incredible, but it's not for everybody. And we have turned away a number of people because we realized that it just wasn't for them, and they weren't for us, if that makes sense. So I hope Lee, that answered your question. What is the target capital that Wild Migrate is looking to raise? So Richard, the target launch that we're looking to do in the over the next 2 quarters is effectively $8 million. We've already invested more than $8 million in the platform and where we're at to now, and the idea was to match that. There is a possibility, and we can give you the different funding where we've got a low road, a medium road, and a high road over the next 2 years, which range at the low road, where you're looking at $8 million through to $20 million to really be able to ramp and scale. And what's interesting for us at a technology level is the technology is built, and the technology has been built from a compliance perspective to be able to roll out into multiple markets. And so we really are at the point where we want to unlock markets. I mean, literally in 2 weeks' time, we've got the guys from Dubai, England, Australia, China, America, all coming to South Africa for a whole marketplace rollout session. And we're going to systematically be rolling all of them out. We've got another 8 countries that are literally wanting to go, and it's literally down to resources. And that's where something else that Willem said, which is really important, is that the first mover generally gets 60% of the market share, the second mover gets 30% of the market share, and the rest fight for 10%. We are the first mover in the global space. We're not naive to the fact that there are other players out there. No one else is playing globally, like we said, but we can't rest on our laurels. So I don't know, Richard, if that answered your question. France asked if the 15% discount was available at the minimum investment. So yes, France, the 15% is across all 5 categories. I would recommend you look at that list that Kevin's got, where we've really tried to give all the different value adds that people can expect for being part of the community. Once the investment amount is agreed, where are the funds transferred to, overseas or South Africa? So Lee, effectively it's a Hong Kong holding company. The entire company is based in US dollars. We did that on purpose for 3 reasons. One is because we always wanted to have a dollar-based company. No matter where you live in the world, whether you're in South Africa, China, or anywhere else in the world, you wanted to ultimately be able to have your asset growing in dollars. You also wanted your income to be growing in dollars. The one thing Kevin didn't show, or I didn't see it on that slide, was that ultimately, if you're looking at a million transactions at an average of 2,000 times 5%, it equals $100 million in revenue. And so that's really the important. And so, some people use their Reserve Bank approval to move it over, but specifically it's an American, I nearly said American company, a US dollar-based company that is held in Hong Kong. It's in Hong Kong. We got extensive help from Grant Thornton in terms of the right tax jurisdiction, the best place globally. Again, we believe the world from an emerging markets, China, India, Asia, Africa is where it's all happening, and Hong Kong sits smack bang right in the middle of that and is best from a tax perspective. Lee, yes, I'm getting your questions. Thank you, although for some reason they're all huddled and all over the place. So minimum investment 10,000 is community member. That's right, Roger. Yes, Roger, the fires are very serious. Yeah, as soon as the webinar's been done, I'll be finding out what's going on, but it's getting a little bit out of hand here. Kevin, so Willem's asked, could we do 5,000? I think, Willem, at the moment, the intention was, actually, while we're doing that, let me put up a poll, because I actually just wanted to ask people, what they would be comfortable with or what they're thinking. As I said to you, we are looking to go into well, some people call it crowdfunding. I quite like the new name that we found. And most people know what an IPO is, which is initial public offering. What we're putting together is where technologies come together, and it's now called an ICO, which is an international crowd offering, which is really where we're going in the second half of this year. And for me, what gets exciting here is really the opportunity to let people invest from lower amounts. We do have a real intent interest on building this community and not only allowing the top end to invest, but in the short term, our wealth partners have generally at minimum. Just so that you know, it was less than a year ago, the minimum investment was actually $100,000. And that's quite important for people to realize. So we were able to drop it down. But there is one defining thing that people do need to know. There is a threshold, an important defining threshold at $200,000. Kevin, I'm not sure if you mentioned that.
Yeah, I did explain that.
Okay. What is Andrew asked, what is the 40% etc. discount referred to? That really, Andrew, is, and I can send you, if you're interested in the market comparables, it's the market comparables with other platforms that are out there. So that's platforms, there's 2 in America, there's 1 in England, one in Singapore, Australia, and it's listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. And that's their valuations that they were actually at when they did their Series A, and based on the actual metrics and the data that they had at the time. It's very interesting for us that we are beyond those data metrics. We're actually better than where they were when they did that. And so for us, we believe there's material upside in terms of the value. Kevin didn't share the DCF model. I don't know if you want me to share that quickly, Kevin. Kevin? Hello. Are you guys there? Okay. Can you guys hear me, or is it just Kevin? Seems you can, because I can see people answering my questions. So, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to share with you the DCF model. Sorry, with all these storms, Kevin's in Cape Town, I'm in Knysna. With all these storms, we're obviously having big problems with the. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry, I thought I had it open.
Sorry, Scott, I'm back. That this technology is not playing as great a ball tonight.
Yeah, you've got to give it a bit of whatever you call it. Cape Town is having a 30-year storm, and I think Knysna is having what could be the end of Knysna community. But anyway, let's not get into that. So if you look at the DCF here, can you see my screen now? I'm not sure what you're seeing.
I'm still seeing the poll.
Okay, let's switch the poll off. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
So taking the DCF model into account. Now, why this is important, and if I just come back here, I just want to share with you something that's really important. I shared this with Kevin earlier, is that when you take different valuations into account, and what's happening. Where did I do that now? Yeah, well, so this is McKinsey's, and it's actually McKinsey's report that came out on the best ways to value, technology companies in high growth in terms of where we are, and just using the discounted valuation method. So, our CFO Lo put this together with effectively our income and the cash flows. There's a great book if you want to understand this better called 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, which is really a good book. I don't know if I've got it available here. Yes, I do.
Funnily enough, that was one book that Joy said anyone starting a business should read.
Yeah, so this is it here, 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. Anyway, and it was when I finally understood how this all works in the technology space. And you can actually see here, just in terms of the valuation. So at the low road, based on our low road income projections, we'd be sitting at a valuation today of about 43. On the medium road, we'd be sitting at about 140, and then on the high road, we'd be sitting at about 263. So coming back to that question, really for us, it was more a case of, there's that 40% that someone asked. It's actually, quite frankly, could be a hell of a lot more when you consider that, as Kevin said, that valuation's only at 37.5. But what's important is that we believe there's a lot of meat on the bone in terms of the opportunities, in terms of where it's going. So I hope that answered that question. Right, let me just get up and see where the rest of the questions are. Wow, this is really playing some games tonight.
Yeah, everything's been very muddled.
I'm glad
the question is, how easy is it for an investor to liquidate its investment, and how often would the business be valued? That's from Kate.
So the business to date has been valued pretty much every 6 months. So it's changed every 6 months. I can show a graph if people are interested in that in terms of the growth over the years. But and from a liquidity perspective, I think, Kate, what's important to understand is in the short term, you need to be careful. It's not that liquid. Although as the ICO becomes available and as it becomes more and more public, it does allow it to create a liquidity situation. It's not something I would like people to bank on in the short term. I do and have learned a lot from Elon Musk, who, he's got 3 companies: Tesla, SpaceX, and Solar City. And some of those companies are billion-dollar companies that have been going more than 10 years, not just for their investors, but also for team members that have stock options. You can have stock options, but they don't buy you beer and pay for your bread and water. And so what those companies are doing now is not waiting for the traditional IPO, but actually doing what they call liquidity events on an annual basis. We haven't done it yet, but it is something we're looking to bring on. But this is not a tradable stock like on the JSE. I think it's important that people understand this is a medium to long term, taking a medium to long term view. with the dividends really starting to come, into real action in the next 4 to 5 years. This is not something that's going to pay dividends in the next 3 months.
Yeah, no, there's another question here just saying, what is the effect on the individual shareholders currently in Wealth Migrate on more shares being offered?
So it's a great question. And at the end of the day, this is an amazing mindset I learned from Henny. So when I started my first company, I had a scarcity mindset, and I owned 100% of the company. And I thought if I brought Kevin along as a partner and I gave him 30%, that I was losing 30%. And Henny, who is a billionaire and who has listed 2 companies, one in South Africa, one in Australia, taught me a very different way of looking at it. He said, Scott, when you have a share in Vodacom, if it is worth $1 and tomorrow it's worth $1.20, all that you're really excited about is that your net asset value has gone up by 20%. And most importantly, you don't care whether you own 100% of Vodacom or 1% of Vodacom or 0.001% of Vodacom. It's your net asset value that counts. Our most important thing with our shareholders is to continue that our net asset value increases. However, it's been a very standard and transparent process where the investors realize and understand that we need investment. I think Kevin showed the J-curve from a funding perspective, and it will continue, in terms of where it is. But what's exciting is that the valuation increases dramatically, and therefore people's net asset value increases. So, does one's percentage within the company dilute? Yes, my percentage has diluted, but the value has significantly increased, and therefore my net asset value significantly increases. And when I understood that in my head, I really want to give you an analogy. Most people in the world are walking around with a spoon, and they think that the world's money is a pond. And when they stick their spoon in, they take it out. Every time they take it out, someone else doesn't have money. And the lesson I learned from Henny is that when you truly understand what I've just said, it's so simple yet so profound. You'll understand that the world of wealth is like a river, and you can just walk up to the river and put your spoon in whenever you want some, and the river will just keep flowing.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I don't want to get into deep psychology, but when you hang around wealthy people, it starts to rub off on you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. There's another question here, Scott, just in terms of customer acquisition, just asking how is Wealth Migrate acquiring new customers?
Okay, so let me go. I'd actually like to answer that with a slide. Are you still seeing my slides?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so we've got a long presentation. It's 168 slides that obviously we didn't show tonight for obvious reasons, and this really is what we've got here in our appendix. So it's under customer acquisition. It's a great question. There's 3 major things to be successful in the marketplace. The first one is about building trust. Then it's about having great selection. And ultimately, it's about having great convenience. And really for us, what we believe is that when you look at online education, there's been large adoption and growth in online education. There's been large growth in online investing, but not necessarily large adoption. And really, we believe that the online education is as important as the online investing because it ultimately builds trust. So the first thing is that everything that we do is based on education-based marketing. That's why people like Dolph DeRoos are here. It's why we do things like the Wealth Movement and with time even the Wealth University. If people want to see our ecosystem video, I think it would be, maybe Kevin, if you could just put it in the chat box for people, it'd be really valuable for them to be able to see where we're going. It's not all built yet, but it gives you a view into our future. Really where the maturity of the investors are going is that it goes publishing, social media, then e-commerce, and finally investing online, which is what we call social commerce. This here is our matrix of how we connect with them. So Wealth Create is in terms of, this is the beginning stage, gamification, and then right through to our inner circle where it gets really kind of sophisticated with research and private wealth, etc. Those of you who were online last night with Wealth Assist will know what I was talking about. In terms of our global user needs, we really work with partners and teams, education, and ultimately our automated systems. Our customer lifetime value ranges between $100,000 to $150,000 per customer, and that's really because of the reinvestment and the ongoing investment from people. There's a whole business model I can share in terms of how we actually roll that out. But the question that I wanted to show you was that really there's three major ways that we roll it out. There's offline, in terms of the education stuff, roadshows, events, investor seminars, etc. If some of you were at them last week actually in South Africa. Then there's online, which is all the digital media and marketing. And then there's channel partners, which is where we've got the whole channel partners through Salesforce and the growth in terms of that and how we're doing it. So you can see where we are at global level, South Africa and China, and then rolling out into different markets and the different strategies in all the different markets, and then with time, rolling into different markets in terms of where we are. And we've got all the breakdowns in terms of the users, etc., the LinkedIn profiles, etc., etc., etc. But what I wanted to show you as well, I'm sorry, and I'm bouncing around here, Kevin, but it's just from different presentations, is I actually want to show you something I showed the board in the board meeting literally 2 weeks ago. And I'll tell you why, because it actually answers what is our distribution more than almost anything. And this is a fantastic book. I spoke to you a lot about this book at the event called The Upstarts. And this is a really, really important book for people to understand. And it was a Harvard study that studied how to build a marketplace. And I'm hoping you're sharing my slides here, Kevin.
Yes, first 1,000.
Yes. So I'm going to just run through this very, very quickly. But they basically studied Uber and Airbnb and Etsy and a bunch of other marketplaces. And they said there's two major stages, 0 to 1,000 and 1,000, and beyond. And really in the first stage, you focus on the supply side. So Airbnb focused on getting good quality houses. Uber focused on getting good quality cars. Wealth Migrate focused on getting good quality properties like the medical buildings. And really on the demand side, it's much more about, I'm just going to talk about the red part here, which is much more about the hands-on with customers, talking to them, understanding, asking them, and really very much on the focusing on the word of mouth with customers. And then you need to, like Airbnb, have a culture of testing, figuring out what's working, what's not working, soliciting feedback, and ultimately, growing that offline experience into the online experience. Then you go to the second phase, which is the 1,000 to 100,000. And this is where you really shift from the supply to the demand side. Everything becomes about digital marketing, which is what I just shared. And quite frankly, it's all about testing, measuring. I'm not going to go into all the details unless people really want me to. But most importantly, there's two major things. One is that there's a shift to the digital marketing. And the second one is that it's about marketplace expansion. So you look for markets where there are accelerants or tailwinds. So as an example, for Uber and Airbnb, they looked for cities where there were big events. There weren't enough taxis, there weren't enough accommodation, and that drove people to wanting to use their system. For us, it's countries that don't trust their government and want to invest in the first world. They already understand why they want to invest and diversify. They just need a solution. They've got short-term pain. And whether it's South Africa, China, the UAE, Iraq, Indonesia, Malaysia, and many other markets that we're growing out on, that's really it. And that's why that marketplace expansion becomes so fast. And the last thing here is that they talk a lot about, from phase 1 to phase 2, you fundamentally have to, shift your tactics in terms of where it is. So I know that's a very long answer to that question, but obviously something that I personally pay a huge amount of attention to in terms of how do you roll out. It's all good and well to say that you're going to be a global company, but how are you actually going to do it? Oh my word, guys. I can literally see fire that not far away.
We've had two people here say, Scott, you've given us so much information. Go now be part of Neisner.
Can you see my window?
Yeah, I can see this. Yep. Well, I can see the orange because I know what I'm looking at, but most people might have only been able to see your computer screen.
So it's getting a bit close to home now. This is not on the hills anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's. No, I want to finish strong, Kevin. It's important. I will go and support and help. But like I also believe, this is one of the things I say a lot is faithfully purposeful, and everything happens for a reason in life. And this is what we're building is bigger than a business. It's bigger than making money. it's a purpose, and ultimately it leads to people's destinies. And you know, in that manner, it's about doing things right. You know.
Yeah. So Scott, I mean, there are some questions here you've answered. So one was how you're going to expand globally. I think you have covered that. In terms of what is the J curve, I think we have covered that. There's a question just around will the wealth partner shares be on the platform at some stage to actually at least see them? You know,
yes,
that's definitely the goal, to digitize as much as possible. I think I've answered the question, Scott. I don't know if you want to answer more.
Well, I found out yesterday from Lowe that they actually are. So they're going to create it as effectively so it'll be like a project on the platform. So if you're a wealth partner, it'll be effectively your shareholding will be on the platform, and yes, you'll be able to manage it online.
Yeah. Why should I trust this team, and who do you have that's going to make it win? I mean, I know we've mentioned some of the international people, but you haven't really mentioned the board in terms of, you know, the fact that Paul Niederer is part of the board. If people don't know who Paul is, Paul was the CEO of ASOB, Australian Small Offerings Board, which essentially did crowdfunding in Australia before it was even called crowdfunding. If you want to hear from Paul, I'm going to do a punt for African Crowdfunding Association. Go to our YouTube channel. Paul did an interview with us where he really gave a lot of information about crowdfunding and the regulatory aspects, and you know, and what he's learned over the years. Scott's now put up this slide. There's Justin Clark. So he's from One Africa Media, which is, you know, the company that is above private property. I'm pretty sure everybody, you know, from South Africa has used private property.
He started, before, I mean, just to put in perspective, he started private property and you know, scaled that out across 16 different countries, on average 4 marketplaces per country. So, you know, when people ask how do we scale and how do we move into new markets, we've got people that have been there, done that, got the T-shirt as well.
Yeah, and then also from a tech side, Martin Freeman, who's founded various financial services companies. You've spoken about Dolph. Of course, from a real estate point of view, there's Henny and Peter Feenstra, very large real estate players. And then from an advisory point of view, we spoke about Joy a bit earlier. You know, Joy really is an expert in fintech. And then Lex Cisney, who was the founder of Commission Junction and wrote the book Organizational Physics, and is working with Wealth Migrate. So the team.
I think what's quite important, Kevin, this guy built his company to $100 million and has subsequently helped over 100 companies scale, tech companies. He's based out of California. And 2 things that are important with him. One is that for the last year, he's been really helping us take this opportunity and scale it globally. And secondly is that he took 70% of his fee in Wealth Partner shares because he believes so much in the company. And if people want to see the letter that he wrote, it really is quite humbling, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. There are still some questions coming in. So, you know, if there are questions that you still want to ask, you know, please do ask them. There is a question here that's just come in. In terms of the founders, how much money did the founders put in the business?
That's a great question. So I've put in about $1.5 million, and Henny's put in the same. When we started the business, we were going 1 for 1. I got to a situation where there were a lot less ones in my bank account than in Henny's bank account, and so I'm just trying to see if that fire's on the hill or actually on my island. Yeah, so no, we like, I'm all in. It's a bit facetious tonight with the fires all around us, but we burnt our boats. You know, I put IPS into the whole holding company. We're all in. I truly believe this is a generational opportunity, and I couldn't be defocused. I had to make sure that I had full focus and that we do whatever it takes to succeed. And some people say to me, "Is there a chance of failing?" Of course, there's a chance of failing, but I don't mind in life failing. I only mind if I haven't tried my best, and That's why I'm all in. Cash, capital, commitment, everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a question just in terms, we haven't, guys, it's just who are the competitors? Is there a large barrier to entry for newcomers? So in terms of global investing in real estate and what Wealth Migrate has been able to do in terms of the listed exchange, that isn't a very simple thing to copy. Is any technology these days copyable? The answer there would be yes. In an exponential, world, it is very different to your more sort of old school linear, linear world. What people must really realize is that the focus is really on execution as opposed to, not necessarily just the idea. Although the IP is fairly solid in terms of what Wealth Migrate has built.
Can I add a few things to that? So there's a couple of things that are really important. If you're American, you build a system for Americans in America, and then you think that Americans are the only 300 million people that are important on the planet. Whereas when you're from a smaller country like South Africa or Israel, you build the technology to be a global player. And if you know anything about technology, when you build a technology stack, you've got to build it with the end in mind. So it's very difficult for an American company, no matter how much money they've got, to scale globally if their technology stack has been built around American systems, American compliance, and American citizens. As an example, most of them have a primary key, which is a thing in a database, which is their social security number, but many other countries don't even have that. So we built it with the end in mind to build a global system, and our entire technology stack has been built to be global. It's scalable, it's resilient, it's mobile focused, and it's at a global level. Now, can that be copied? Yes, it can be copied, but it'll take time. Secondly, from a regulation perspective, Kevin's already said it, we integrated into a regulated exchange. Thirdly, Henny, myself, and others I've been investing overseas for just short of 20 years now, since 1999. Henny for more than 2 decades. Obviously, Dolph DeRoos, Paul Nieder. These guys. There's over 200 years worth of fintech and property experience that allowed us to go into markets quickly in markets we had already invested in. So Henny and I have been investing in Australia for more than 10 years. America. I lived in England for 9 years. South Africa, etc. So to move into new markets is a feat much bigger than most people understand. Just doing the small stuff, opening bank accounts, cross-border compliance, is really, really tricky. So some of it's the soft stuff that people don't understand, the relationships. And then the blockchain is something that is really significant in terms of where things are going. So can it be copied? Yes. Are there big moats? I believe they are, Harshad. But I think what's important here is we're also not naive. One of the reasons that we're going into the market to raise a further $8 million, with the possibility of going as far as raising up to $20 million, is to be able to compete at the global level. We've done phenomenally well with a far more smaller budget in comparison with some of the American companies and the cash that's been thrown at them. But we're not naive in terms of not only maintaining our position, but continuing to grow the market share and make sure that it becomes irrefutable.
Yeah. And then, Harshad, just in terms of the question, is the business regulated with the FSB? So we've had a number of meetings with the FSB as not only Wealth Migrate, but as the African Crowdfunding Association as well. At the moment, crowdfunding has no regulation. They're looking in terms of a framework around crowdfunding and what it entails. So we have had a number of meetings with the FSB around this to discuss exactly this, and their response to us is that this is real estate and it is not regulated, should not be regulated by the FSB. Should that is that the correct answer from the FSB? After a number of meetings that we have had, that's the outcome we have at the moment. So we really do believe that as a company, the focus is on investor protection, and this is exactly what we explained at the Financial Services Board. Investor protection is number one, and of course, the way Wealth Migrate's business model is built, Wealth Migrate only earns, when the investor is succeeding. So it's in Wealth Migrate's best interests for the investor to succeed. So that's essentially the situation that we stand at there. Scott, I think in terms of questions that I have had beforehand, all of those have been answered. If there are any other questions that people have, I have sorted them on my side, Scott, and we have answered everything that people have asked. Scott has just put up a poll. If you aren't looking at your screen, if you can quickly go to your screen and answer that now. If there are any further questions that people do have, please do put those into the question box now, and we can answer them. Otherwise, if there are any comments that you want to make, anything that you have to say, before we do close out tonight, please also do put that in the box. I mean, it really has. It's been great to have so many folks online and people, asking questions. I see that 96% of people answered that they think that technology will have an effect on real estate. And so if, okay, I see we do have another quick question that's come in that we can answer whilst this poll is up. If people can be answering that poll, which is, with the planned growth on the demand side, will the supply side be able to keep up? And we actually, that's a good question, Harshit. Scott, if you want to answer that, I know what your answer is going to be.
So we live in a very unique situation where, with Henny's experience specifically, there's such amazing access to resources and relationships in place. We've got over $1 billion of pipeline out of the US, the UK, and Australia. We've had meetings with Alibaba and the people there in terms of they actually own a fintech company that bought an investment bank. And the lady's problem was not whether our technology works, but whether we'd be able to service their 300 million clients quickly. So, obviously the supply side is something important. And really, we believe that we've been focusing a lot on the supply side for many years, and a lot of relationships are in place. As Michiel said, if he wanted to, he could turn on $100 million tomorrow just in America, literally available right now. And that's not just taking the rubbish buildings. That's stuff that's already gone through. So we really are building the marketplace where you've got to manage the demand and the supply at the same time. I'm probably not supposed to mention it, but we are making good progress in terms of a $100 million underwriting fund to really continue to build out that supply side. But it's a great question, Harshat, and I think it's about balancing it with supply and demand. But supply is certainly not our bottleneck. And one of the key things for our use of capital is to continue to invest in the platform, the marketplace rollout in terms of going into new markets where there's demand, and then really, from a digital marketing perspective to let more and more people know about it. So my point being is much more of a focus on the demand side than the supply side, because the supply side is what we've worked on for decades.
Yeah. Another one here from Tarek said, is there a current valuation set or established for Wealth Migrate for this round? So I don't know if maybe when we spoke about that, Tarek, you missed that. So for this round, we're looking at 37.5 million.
Yeah, so Tarek and I know each other from Dubai. I know Tarek said he might be a little bit late tonight. I'm not sure if he was online earlier.
Sorry.
So yes, I mean, look, Tariq, there is a set in terms of where we're at. We are going into a larger round starting in the second half of this year, and what we are offering people is a 15% discount prior to that round in terms of it. But I can send you the details if you're interested, Tariq, and you and I can take it offline. Tariq's the gentleman that taught me about Iraq. I must admit, I never considered Iraq as a possible marketplace, and he explained to me the opportunity in Iraq, and that's when I really realized those tailwinds. There's lots of countries out there where you've got middle to high net worth individuals that want to invest in England, Australia, and America, and quite frankly, you don't need to teach them the why. You just need to give them a solution, a safe and simple solution. So,
yeah. Okay. Harshad, you're full of questions tonight. Just saying, with the 8 million raise, 2.5 million for people, is this not a limit on exponential scaling, i.e., having a growing headcount?
No, it's not. So what's interesting, Harshad, is it's a great question. I'd like to believe that 75% of the key people are in place. However, saying that, there are still a couple of key people that I'd like to get. I mean, some of the markets, you need to, when you do market expansion, you need areas. As an example, in MENA, we want to set up an operation within MENA that will look after that whole area. If you don't know what MENA is, it's Middle East and North Africa, and actually from there you can run India as well. But I mean, really, the focus is not on getting lots of people. It's about getting the best people in the world to be part of the team. We're not naive to the fact that our current team of 50 people, we're not. I mean, Uber's got 7,000. We're not Uber, but equally with 50, we're pretty stretched at the moment. We've got an amazing team, but we are going to need to support it. But ultimately, the investment is in building a world-class team, continuing to build a world-class platform, and marketplace expansion. But I don't know if that answers your question, but it's certainly not to make the headcount 25,000.
Yeah. Okay. At the moment, the last comment is just a comment from Kate saying, "Thanks for the presentation. We're excited to become a wealth partner. Keep in touch and good luck with the fires." If there are not any further questions or comments, we can call it a night. So maybe we'll just keep it open here for a few more minutes in terms of the webinar. If there are no more questions, then then we can call it. Scott, I don't know if you want to just make some closing comments. I mean, everybody who was here is still online, so I think people are hungry to learn and hungry to understand, what it entails in terms of investing from, on the wealth partner side. So if there's anything for you to say in closing, there's just a number of people just saying thanks, and it's really great to hear you guys.
I'd say from my side, Kevin, there's three things. The first one is that sometimes in business things happen by strategy and by great process and great thinking and great planning. And sometimes, if business people are honest, it happened by fluke. And for me, the wealth partner community started by fluke. I was going to America, I was buying houses. People said to me, "Can I come on a buyer's trip?" I was like, "Well, we don't really offer that, but no problem, come with me." We started buying houses, we had great experience. When we got back, they were like, "Hey, why don't we do a lunch and then a dinner," and then became a weekend. And then people started saying, and they became great friends, and then they started saying, "Well, how do we get involved in the platform?" I know you spoke about that earlier. And from that, I never realized that it would become one of the greatest privileges of my life to be part of such a unique community with such incredible experiences, with such amazing people that not only have the opportunity to do something very purposeful on the planet and ultimately, I believe solve one of the greatest challenges on the planet, but we also don't have to be Mother Teresa. We can create a tremendous wealth in the process as well. And I live a lot by Zig Ziglar's philosophy of you can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. And we talk a lot about 1 billion people, and we don't talk a lot about the money we're going to make, but it's a prerequisite. If you help 1 billion people, it's only a matter of time. The second thing I would say is that for us, it's all about transparency. So if people want to dive into the numbers and look at the the detail, we're quite happy to do that, because we'd rather you know what you're getting into. Like I said, for some people it's the right thing, and for some people it's not. And we want to make sure that the transparency, and that our 3 core values that Kevin spoke of which transparency is one, and that ultimately helps you trust us. And the third thing I would say is that the third core value for us is alignment. And everything's about alignment. Everything is about getting the right people to be part of the community, about making sure that on the journey there's plenty of meat left on the bone so that we can all win together, and most importantly that we're aligned. And that I think the old school business in the 20th century was that people get to the top of the tree and one person wins and one person gets all the awards and all the credit. I believe the world has completely changed. I believe that as a community now we can co-create things, we can collaborate, and we can do phenomenal things on the planet. And that's what I'm truly excited about. And so hopefully for many people tonight, if nothing else, they learned something tonight. But we truly want alignment from everyone, and make sure that long term we believe that that's the way of nature's laws to win. So from my side, deep gratitude. Kevin, thank you very much to your side for planning everything. My life on this journey continues with newbies. I've never done a webinar while watching massive flames out of my window and wondering if it's jumped over the island. Why I stepped out there was to ask my wife to check whether it's houses burning on the hill or houses burning on our island, because then maybe I should be packing bags actually. but anyway, from my side, Kevin, deep gratitude. And for everyone who's online tonight, thank you for your time. We deeply appreciate it. And for some of you that are going to join the community, we really look forward to you being involved. It just gets better and better. So exciting times ahead.
I mean, Scott, it has been a pleasure. It's actually been quite great. I think this is the first webinar where I think it's the most I've spoken on a webinar. I'm usually a bit more of a silent partner, so it really has been great. I did just want to point out that you spoke about the fluke. Michael is online, a true partner. So he has been online tonight. So and I know he played a big part in that. So how's it, Michael? Hope things are okay up in Durban. And I just did want to remind everyone that there were people asking in terms of, is this recorded? You can be sure as anything that it's pretty much everything gets recorded. So yes, there is a recording. And when you get your follow-up email, I will add the recording in there, because I know some people did ask so that they could share it with people who couldn't be here tonight. So again, I mean, yeah. So
Kevin, just one thing. Sorry, one thing to butt in there. Richard Payne asked about the ability for his kids. I would like to just point out that we have a manifesto. Point 16 is about family first. And one thing that I love about the Wealth Partner thing is it's not just about an individual. We've got plenty of stories where wives or husbands have literally woken up, but most importantly, children. In fact, we had to change the venue for the Wealth Weekend at the end of June. Because so many children were coming, and the original venue couldn't take children. So, Richard, for me, I've got a 5-year-old. I believe that the generational wealth, which we learn from the top 1%, is not about one person making money. It's about empowering your entire family to be creators and to go out there and change the world. So, I'm sorry for butting in, Kevin, but I just wanted to answer that. And actually, something we're really excited about is last week we went live where children under 18 can invest online through the platform. So, no more toys or bicycles or Ninja Turtles now. John T will be getting his presents on Wealth Migrate.
Okay, well, great. Thanks, Scott. And seriously, I mean, good luck with what's happening that side. And I'm sure everybody, there are a bunch of people saying their thoughts and prayers are with you guys. I mean, and we really are thinking about you. So thank you, everybody.
That's not if we can have everyone online tonight, not pray for us, but pray for the community at Neisner. I'm going to battle to hold back my tears here, but this place has fucking gone up in smoke, literally, to say the least. I've got 6 families at my home. It's literally Thiessen and Leisure Isle are the only places that are safe at the moment. I'm not even sure if there's going to be a town left tomorrow. Johnny's school's gone. It's all gone. It's gone. So I don't know what's next.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Anyway, sorry to finish on a melodramatic note.
Unfortunately.
maybe this is what inspires me more, because unfortunately the people that are affected most are the have-nots, and the wealthy, like myself and my family, that I'm deeply grateful for, live on a water island, eh? And maybe that's what we're going to change. So
yeah, cool. Well, I mean,
yeah.
Good night. Good night,
Thanks a lot.
everybody.
Good night.
Cool. Cheers.